Hello and welcome back, Eddie Radosovich. George Stoya here from the SoonerScoop.com studios. Another portal report as Oklahoma gets the, thank God news. Is that how we're going to term it?
Sure.
With the tight end commitment of Carson Kent on Monday morning from Kennesaw State. We'll get into him as well as Isaiah Satania, the wide receiver from Arkansas that made his announcement over the course of the weekend. Congratulations to George, a newly engaged man, as he comes in on this Monday morning. Thoughts, concerns, criticisms on 3 days in of being engaged?
I would like for you to also call me fiance. I want everybody to call me fiance. I love that word.
George has become a little bit of a bitch lately. No, I'm just kidding. Congratulations. That's exciting news for you and Aaron, and we look forward to your long, glorious life together.
I think Aaron wants to come on the show sometime.
Really?
Yeah, I think she'd like to come on, and
I think that would be great.
I don't know what she would say, but
I think that she should come on, and I think that would be welcomed.
Let's do it. I proposed that after the proposal for her to do, we should do a breaking YouTube show.
That would have been awesome. We would have done numbers. I think that would have been great. Although me and you, by the sounds of it on Friday night, probably don't need to be in front of microphones. All right, let's get into a little bit of it. But first, let us tell you about HomeFieldApparel.com. They've been with us all season as we get ready to head down to the DFW coming up at the end of the week. All you got to do is go to HomeFieldApparel.com. 15% off first order using the promo code, as you see on the screen behind us, SCOOP. That is 15% off your first order using the promo code SCOOP. And thank you to HomeFieldApparel.com for being with us all season. Obviously, got the disco knit sweaters as well as the retro jacket that I know that you pointed out. And you can do that. Hit up HomeField Apparel, and maybe it's not too late. Maybe it is a little bit too late here the week of Christmas, but get those stocking stuffers maybe in for January or something.
Well, and you can still give gifts afterwards. Valentine's Day's coming up. I know I'll be shopping for that.
You're going to be extra busy this time of the year.
Exactly. So it's never too late.
Never too late. HomeFieldApparel.com, 15% off your first order using the promo code SCOOP, and they've been with us all season. It's been a fun ride here this season with HomeField Apparel, and we will now welcome in the great Josh McCuistion down at Houston HQ and get his thoughts on a couple of the items coming up here through the transfer portal. Now 8 commitments in, right? 7 of those being scholarship players. The only person or the only player coming in not on scholarship, obviously a specialist in Jacob Ulbrich, the punter from Kennesaw State, and he has a teammate coming with him now as well in Carson Kent. And I guess for either of you guys, Josh, hello, welcome in. How are we?
Good, guys. You know, just living the dream.
As one does. I'm sure Lainey and Layla getting ready for the incoming of gifts at the McCuistion household if Santa Claus is going to visit this year. But I guess you could say Santa Claus did visit Norman already. They at least have one tight end. I know that we've been kind of freaking out about it, but Carson Kent does put his name in as an Oklahoma commit on Monday morning.
Yeah, this happened pretty quickly for Oklahoma. I know Carson had some plans to visit some other, honestly, smaller schools, and then Oklahoma kind of came in late, offered him. He got to campus, I want to say, the next day after OU had offered him. So, and then he committed a couple of days later, didn't take any other visits. So this is a guy that, look, is he the most flashy player? No, but he's 6'4", 240 pounds. This last year, I don't remember the stats off the top of my head. I had them pulled up earlier, but I think it was like 18 receptions, 200-something yards, and 3 touchdowns.
18 for 217, plus 3 touchdowns this year. So you hit it right on the head. I think we've talked about Kennesaw State, too. If you want to talk about one of the offenses in the country nationally that, maybe Oklahoma even surpassed this year, it would be Kennesaw State.
So a guy that was kind of productive for an offense that was horrific a year ago. So we'll see. I think he's probably more of a blocking tight end. Josh might have more on that, but at least they have somebody at tight end. One other guy to watch at tight end is Will Huggins from Pitt State.
Okay.
He originally started his career at Kansas. Played there for 4 years, didn't really see a bunch of time. Played last year at Pitt State. Actually had some interesting numbers. I'd have to pull them up, but I want to say it was like 300 yards receiving and a couple touchdowns. But he's the other tight end that I know OU is interested in, and he also visited Oklahoma over the weekend.
Josh, I guess when we're talking about Carson Kent, 6'4", 240, watched a little bit of the tape. Maybe, as George said, a little bit more of a blocker than a passing tight end or a pass-catching tight end.
Yeah, let's avoid all passing tight ends. Let's not have that as part of the thing anymore. But with him, I see a guy that blocks really well, very assignment sound, where he needs to be. But again, the question remains, guys, and we talked about this, kind of privately. Is there a way to kind of project what he's doing offensively into the SEC? Can that work? Can that fit? I don't know, because there's no real competition on Kennesaw State's schedule to say that's going to work.
Yeah, I totally agree, and that's the argument with some of these guys that OU's taken in the portal, but especially at this position, it's just we kind of ranted about it the last portal report, but you'd like to see them go after some bigger names in the portal, and there's been some good tight ends that have gone in. Now, I don't know what their price tag is, but OU hasn't even been able to get a lot of them on campus.
Sure.
The only other one was the Nebraska kid, Borkircher, who ends up at Texas A&M. And they missed on him. So I don't know. I do think they're going to want to try to add another tight end. Will Huggins, like I said, started his career at Kansas, was at Pitt State last year, 6'7", 250. So if that does anything for you, definitely a big dude.
Yes.
22 receptions, 395 yards last year for Pitt State. So
certainly at a position where you just maybe need some bodies right now. It certainly kind of feels like that. I know everybody has been quite frustrated with the experience at tight end. In the portal, jumping back into Friday, Oklahoma did get another wide receiver commit in Isaiah Satania. The commenter's been all over my ass about this. Satania, Arkansas speedster. We talked about him. Has some really good genes with his parents. His father being the Texas A&M track and field coach. His mom was did you say an Olympic qualifier?
1992 Olympic sprinter for Jamaica.
Okay,
and then
you go.
His dad is, the now track and field coach at Texas A&M. I think he also did the decathlon for LSU back in the day. So very good running genes in his family, and definitely a speedster, a guy that I would say kind of fits that Brennan Thompson role where they're going to try and throw some deep balls to him, some crossing routes. Certainly somebody Oklahoma really liked and I think got for a pretty good price.
Josh, you were familiar with his work, Satania's work in high school. Fayetteville High School, played for Jay Wilkinson, who's now over at Broken Arrow. What can you make of this? I know that we had this bigger conversation on this week's Unofficial 40, just in terms of overall what Oklahoma's doing at wide receiver and the importance of that position moving forward.
Yeah, guys, this is a player that brings a lot of what we've seen Oklahoma lose. So much of what we've watched Oklahoma bring in at wide receiver has been largely about adding size, getting bigger, getting more physical. This is a guy that is more of a like for like. When you look at Brennan Thompson, you look at some of the guys that have left, this is a guy with big-time speed, can hit home runs. I love what he does in special teams. I think he could bring something to Oklahoma in the return game. So, again, this is a guy probably 5'11", 185, like just not the big physical presence, but brings in something that's a little different than some of these other guys, the Giovanni Gibsons and the Contez Lewis, bigger, longer, kind of rangier athletes. So I think you see a lot here that makes sense and can work. And I think, again, he brings something that Oklahoma needs. I mean, you're going to have to be able to stretch the field. You're going to have to challenge defenses. And I think with the run game and what they want to do with John Mateer and Xavier Robinson in 2025, being able to keep those safeties honest could be very important.
Also wanted to note that one of the other wide receivers Oklahoma was looking at, Jared Bradley from Boston College. He commits to Kansas State.
Right.
So it was kind of up in the air if he was going to take that visit. My understanding is OU liked Bradley. I think Kansas State liked him a little bit more, and OU wasn't willing to match whatever maybe that offer was. So I do think Oklahoma will probably look elsewhere at wide receiver. Is that this portal cycle, or is it in the spring? I don't know. We'll see. I know that there's maybe some interest in Keon Brown, who was once a Sooner commit, ended up going the JUCO route. I believe because of I don't know if he ever qualified. I don't know the full story there. Josh might know it better than me, but maybe he's somebody they'd be interested in. Cam Vaughn from Jacksonville State's another guy that I know
had a nice bowl game we were watching.
Yeah, huge bowl game. But from Jacksonville State, he's a kid that I know that they've been in contact with. again, it'll be interesting to see just because this week Oklahoma's down in Fort Worth getting ready for the bowl game. They leave today. So don't expect a ton of portal news this week, especially since they can't really have visitors. But maybe the next week or a couple weeks after that, you could still see some maybe late additions. But you could also see some of this, pick up again in the spring.
You mentioned it with Jaron Bradley. He's part of that ilk of guys that did visit Norman. Doesn't end up coming here. Logan George, another one, a defensive end. He makes the announcement he will be attending Ohio State, as well as the Cornerio kid, the kicker from Western Kentucky. He makes an announcement, I guess, post-Oklahoma visit that he will be headed to Ole Miss. So kicker's definitely still one of those positions that you would imagine Oklahoma's going to make continued efforts there, right, at kicker, as well as maybe defensive end.
Yeah, I don't know I can't give you a name right now at kicker who they might pivot to, but they definitely want to bring someone in to compete with Liam Evans. Obviously, the superstar freshman that we've heard a lot about, but I think they want somebody with at least some experience to come in. It would have been a big get to get Canero, but he ends up at Ole Miss. And then defensive end, there's a lot of names out there. One name that I would say to watch is Jason Jenkins at Tennessee. He entered today.
Interesting.
I think he's somebody Oklahoma will be very interested in. Can they, is his price tag going to be pretty high? Probably.
Sure.
But he's somebody to watch. And then at defensive tackle, just want to mention James Thompson from Wisconsin. He visited over the weekend. He's one of the top defensive tackles in the portal. We'll see. I think that he's going to take some time to think about what he's going to do. I don't know when he's going to make a decision, but I know Tennessee is obviously high on his list. Texas A&M, I think, was another one. SMU, so some big boys in this.
Want to get into more of discussion in terms of Oklahoma, the portal. There's one guy that is still out there that has visited Norman. But first, let us tell you about William and Lauren. We've been telling you about William and Lauren all season. We've had a lovely time with them. They're the official custom clothier of OU football. William and Lauren outfits your favorite OU players in custom suits that boost their confidence off the field to match their confidence on the field. Their perfectly tailored clothing ensures every suitor stands out in comfort and style at prices that make luxury accessible. Visit William and Lauren in Oklahoma City or online at williamandlauren.com. Dress like a champion and make your style as legendary as Oklahoma football. As you see all the players coming in and out of the buses and all that kind of stuff, outfitted by William and Lauren.
I wonder if they can get me a tux for my wedding.
I think that maybe that would be a very fruitful option. And they have
a good deal.
Location, obviously, in Oklahoma City. Or if you're in Tulsa and you need them, I believe they're opening a brick and mortar in the 918, williamandlauren.com. Special thank you to them. And we were talking about guys that have made decisions or haven't made decisions, right? One of those being Ethan O'Connor, the Washington State cornerback, that is still certainly a high priority target for Oklahoma.
Yeah, he has not made a decision yet. I think he's going to make one any day now. He also visited Miami and Georgia. Miami, I think, made a very attractive offer to him. I think Georgia obviously speaks for itself in terms of defensive play there. I think Oklahoma's still in the thick of this thing. This is a guy that they identified very early, made a connection with.
One of the first guys, I want to say, that had come in from the portal to visit Norman.
Definitely, and you add, John Mateer, who I'm sure he's familiar with, Ben Arbuckle as well. You would think it would make some sense. I think that OU has a chance. I just don't know when he'll commit. If he doesn't commit to Oklahoma, I think that they'll pivot and look somewhere else because they do want to add an experienced cornerback in that room. They love the young talent there, but they don't really have a ton of vets coming back. When you lose Kenai Walker to obviously the portal, Des Malone is a senior. He's gone. You'd love for Gentry Williams to be back and everything, but you just can't really count on his health right now. I think they'd like to bring in somebody that's played some football at that position.
Josh, we're now at 8 portal commitments, obviously 7 of those being scholarship guys outside of the specialist and Jacob Olbrich. I think John Mateer is a pretty obvious name when we're talking about, okay, this guy's coming in from day one. You expect him to make a contribution. Of the portal guys right now, who's somebody that maybe you're looking at that you go, okay, yeah, he's going to be part of Oklahoma's plans in 2025, and he almost has to be?
When you word it like that, see, if I was going to say the guy that I think, oh man, this guy could be the breakout, I think I'd lean to Javonte Gibson. Okay. I love what he brings. Like I just love his size. I love his speed. I think there is a chance he is a legitimate breakout kind of guy. as far as a guy that I would say, you know what, I'm going to bet money that this guy is a quality player for Oklahoma and really add something to that offense, I would say it's Keontez Lewis. Like, I just like what he brings. I think he's very adept at a lot of what Oklahoma's going to do under Ben Arbuckle. He is so good at working against zone coverages, which we know Oklahoma will see plenty of, and we know how Oklahoma, or not we know, but I guess if you take what was done at Washington State and you kind of see it, I just see an easy role for him is kind of that guy that sits down behind the linebackers, sits in front of the safeties, kind of does a lot of that stuff where you're talking about working in the middle of the field, and I think can be in a world where I don't think any of us have big expectations that Oklahoma's found their future at tight end, like we know what the tight end is going to be. He can kind of work in those areas where you would traditionally see a tight end, and I think he can have some success.
For me, Eddie, I'm going with Derek Simmons. Now, I like the wide receivers, and I think one of those three guys is going to end up being a player for Oklahoma and have a really nice year. I think Derek Simmons could be your right tackle, your starting right tackle next season. I think that he's somebody that's going to come in. He has a lot of experience. I think he just looks like a Bill Beatenbow guy, and the way that he plays too, I think he fits what they want to do. So he's a guy that I think could end up being a day one starter. Not to say those other guys can't be. Like if you told me Giovanni Gibson or Isaiah Satania is starting for Oklahoma, Keontez Lewis is starting for Oklahoma next year, I don't think that should surprise anyone. Carson Kent, I think, sure, in all likelihood, probably will start for Oklahoma as the only guy that's really played a lot at tight end in college football. But I think Derek Simmons, if you told me next year that he started, all 12 regular season games at right tackle, it would not surprise me.
I'm gonna Jacob Olbrich, I think, is going to be slept on because he's a punter. He's very, very, very good.
Yeah.
That was a nice skit. Obviously, it's going to be interesting to see what they do at place kicker here moving forward. I really wanted the Carnerio kid. He might be one of the best kickers in the country. Yeah. But, that's not to say, I know people are really, really high on Lee Evans as well.
Yeah.
And you just need somebody to come in and be a little bit more of a...
you want somebody that's done it.
Well, and you want some competition there, right?
Right.
Because I think we've seen 2 years ago with Oklahoma at the place kicking position, they didn't have any other options. They were having to run out Zach Schmidt over and over and over again. He's obviously had a bounce-back senior season. He's going to have his final game coming up on Friday for Oklahoma. But it will be interesting to see what Oklahoma is able to do here moving forward in the portal. I would expect them to be – they would continue to go after guys like the guy that you mentioned from Tennessee if they were able to get him in.
Definitely. And I'm looking at the numbers here because OU's trying to get to that 85 limit. They're around 80, 81 right now. I still think you could see maybe a couple of guys after the bowl game jump in the portal for OU, so that would free up maybe a couple more spots. But I know for sure, OU definitely wants to probably add another tight end. I would keep my eye on Will Huggins. I think that he's somebody that they've identified, and again, they need, I think, 2 tight ends there. They definitely want to add a corner. I think they probably want to add another wide receiver, and then defensive tackle and edge. I think those are also 2 positions that Oklahoma's looking at. So if they have about 5 or 6 positions available to go get, those are the ones that I'm looking at. Maybe a linebacker. I know that they've kind of shown some interest in a couple guys, but I think it'd have to be the right fit. I think it would also be sort of a cheetah, because when you look at that cheetah position, you lose Deshaun McCullough. Kendall Dolby's coming back next year, but he's coming off a pretty serious injury. You love what you have Samuel Masigo, but you'd like to maybe add one more guy to that mix. You like the young guys, Reggie Powers and those guys that could maybe play that position, but I wouldn't be shocked if there's somebody that fits that mold, like a Kamori House, for example, for Washington, that ended up committing to North Carolina.
I was going to say that he gets in on the Bill Belichick train.
He would have been someone I think Oklahoma would have liked to have, but I think North Carolina was the team to beat from the start.
Sure. There. It's going to be interesting to see how much success Bill Belichick's going to have on the recruiting trail. Obviously, barked up the John Mateer tree, remember, last week before he ends up committing to Oklahoma. But certainly it's a new dynamic in college football, there's no doubt, with Bill Belichick being involved. Josh, just in terms of what they've been able to do, I know that it's kind of a tough sell to the fan base right now with Oklahoma and some of the names that they brought into the transfer portal. You might be the wrong person to ask because I know that we've had conversations about this, but what do you make of just the evaluations right now with Oklahoma? From the outside looking in, you could definitely make the argument, they're going a cheap way, but maybe they have found some diamonds in the rough.
There is a reason to believe in some of the potential. Like there are guys, like I said, with Keontez Lewis, he's played at the Big Ten level. He's played at, and not just like a guy that was on a roster, but he had a role. Like he helped Wisconsin. They were better because he was there. So you're like, okay, I can kind of get there. Giovanni Gibson, that's a question. But what they're buying into is height, weight, speed. Okay, I can work with those things. Like I can start there. One of the things, guys, and I'd be interested to know if you guys feel this was a concerted effort. I feel like there's more guys in this group that have multiple years remaining, like less of the senior rental, and then, okay, we got to start all over again in 2026. Like it feels like a lot of these guys, and not all, but the majority, like Luke Backlinko, you look at some of these types of guys that have 2-3 years, if you include a red shirt, like they have real possibilities to be on campus for a while.
Yeah, no doubt. You said it best, but Backlinko, he certainly would fit that bill, right? Of somebody that, maybe he doesn't fit into your interim plans or into 2025 plans, but if you said that he was going to, win a starting job and work with Bill Beatenbow and Jerry Schmidt here over the next year and a half or something, all of a sudden maybe in 2026 he is somebody that you would count on the interior.
Even Isaiah Satania, who I think has 2 years left, Carson Kent, 2 years left, Giovanni Gibson, I think has 2 years left. Like these are all guys that it's not just about next year, but the future and building that. And maybe a Carson Kent isn't somebody who's just a huge dynamic player for you this year, but maybe in a couple of years he develops into that. I don't know. That's a total guess.
They need help in 2025, George.
Oh, yeah, I know.
They need help immediately.
We'll see. Look, I think OU's taking a gamble on some of these guys. I think a lot of them are high risk, high reward. I also think Oklahoma, and I've said this over and over again, they love their young talent. They love the guys that they've already got in the building. They think that they can build something pretty special there by adding in a couple of key pieces like a John Mateer that can maybe get a Deion Burks, started and really going and have a huge year next year. They feel like they have some really nice pieces on the offensive line. And I think we all agree too that they do have some really good young talent up front.
Sure.
Now it just has to come together, right? And they need some of these guys to just kind of fill some of those gaps.
That is a portal report here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel. Everybody have a wonderful Christmas holiday season here over the next week. Oklahoma going to be in action on Friday morning, 11 a.m. against Navy in the Armed Forces Bowl from Amon Carter Stadium down in Fort Worth. So for George and Josh, I'm Eddie. We'll see you right back here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel.